terms of its decline rate has sort of, there's been a curve to that decline rate over a longer period, as it were. It, in terms of where we go forward, I guess the problem is we still need to really clean up for California SET, and have a few quarters to kind of see, are we really in a, has the world changed, as it were? Because we've spoken to Altria pretty recently on this, and they were still sort of like ex-SET, but we're still in that 3 to 4% decline world. Was their sense of things, but I think we're getting to a point now, particularly with your commentary and you being someone who's worked in the industry for a very long time, that there is going to be an element of needing to sort of see it to believe it. If that is the case, at least. I think our perspective around on the IQOS margin point you made around sharing is, does it make any sense for Philip Morris to provide sort of disincentives to Altria to really push this product very, very hard? So we had thought perhaps it will work something more like, at least initially, Altria basically keep a lot of it, or almost all of it, because I think Philip Morris, having understood the potential value of a first mover advantage in other markets around the world, would understand that that's potentially very important here as well. So that's kind of been our sort of perspective, because I think the company that we've heard is that basically the way it's going to work is they should be at least agnostic between selling heat sticks and selling their own cigarettes, as it were. So I think your perspective was a little bit different there. I guess the thing that I've thought about is how in terms of how these guys sort of potentially get out of it is, obviously maybe you end up with a bit of category growth, as it were, in terms of from the vaping products, because if it's, I guess part of the issue with smoking is it kills you, or that's a very big issue with smoking, whereas vaping doesn't have that sort of issue or sort of stigma as well. So it's whether you actually get that as some growth that helps to offset. And I guess the other perspective that I kind of had is, well, if we're moving eventually towards a more consolidated cigarette type market where there is a better ability to take price, well, you don't have any tax on it at the moment.
That would be helpful for margins.
Yeah, like over time, if you're able to price it more aggressively and you don't have the tax issue, that could be pretty helpful from a margin perspective. But those have kind of just been like the other thoughts that sort of I'd had as we were chatting.
Yeah. No, I think you're exactly right. I mean, the volume question, but we're not going to know the answer to volume or have an initial clean read, obviously, until the back half of this year. But even then, it usually takes a year or two to kind of see how that plays itself out in terms of your base volumes. The margin structure story, I think, is yet to be told. But you're right. In terms of how it could play itself out in e-vapor. The other thing, though, is that as cigarette volumes continue to decline, our state's going to then look to e-vapor products as a tax revenue source to offset it. And I know that's going to be a continuing battle that tobacco companies have to fight at that level. The only question you didn't ask me that I have gotten with great regularity is about the prospects for a transaction between Philip Morris International and Altria. And the way I've always answered that question is these are very shareholder-friendly companies, and they're going to run themselves for the benefit of their respective shareholder bases. And if there is a transaction that can be designed that would make sense from a financial standpoint for each of the shareholder bases, I would think that the likelihood of a transaction occurring is much higher but absent that point, I have find it very difficult to see how a transaction would occur between the two companies, because they're going to want to make sure that it's not just going to be a strategic transaction, it also has to be a